Every initiative, every idea has a basic hypothesis, whether you put those in words or not. Your basic hypothesis when you're launching an idea or a company is, if I build it, then people will buy it. And it is under that header that we evaluate these statements, right? The purpose of the market research scorecard is to provide context and confidence to your assumptions and evaluations about an idea or an initiative. It should be used to strengthen and objectively assess the viability of an idea. Should you abandon this idea, or do you need more validation to strengthen and tweak it? These are 5 statements that illustrate how this tool would be used. These statements are typically used as a basis for launching an initiative, so let's take a look at them closely. The 3D TV initiative was an initiative that a lot of TV manufacturers undertook, right? Beyond the smart TV, they thought that customers wanted a 3D TV. And so this is typical of a statement that you would see in a market research report. 55% of all American households have a smart TV. This receives a total score of 4, and I'll explain why. This is secondary information, and secondary information is less valuable than primary information. However, just because it's secondary information does not mean that it doesn't belong in a market research document. It can be valuable. If it's from a reputable source in a very large-scale study, you can accept that information. It's not feasible that every organization would go validate these numbers. We can kind of rely on a reputable source to tell us that. It is quantitative. It says it with numbers. Again, if this is a reputable source and that is something that you need to assess where you're getting this information from, let's consider this a fact. Let's assume for this conversation that this statistic of American households and smart TVs was gathered around the same time of this initiative, right? Maybe within 6 months. And that's a threshold that companies need to set when they're evaluating market research. How much of a threshold can we accept as current? Every industry is different. If you're in the biomedical pharmaceutical industry, the life cycles of products are much longer. One might argue 5 years is considered current. Anything outside of that would be the past. But the point here is that it is specific and subjective to what we're talking about. So let's say that this group decides anything within 6 months is marked current. Anything outside of that is the past. And so let's say that's the case here. We'll call it current for the sake of this description. Is it representative? No, because a smart TV is not the same as a 3D TV. So you cannot make the definitive connection between owning a smart TV and willingness to buy a 3D TV. But this is significant, meaning it does represent a US market as a whole that owns late technology home entertainment. But that's it. Let's go to another example. Airbnb. If everybody knows the founder story, these are 2 guys who posted on Craigslist 3 air mattresses in their living room floor and it sold, right? And so maybe in their pitch deck, they would have a statement like this. We successfully booked 3 house guests via Craigslist for an air mattress on our living room floor. This receives a total score of 5 out of 6. Why? This is primary. It's Yoda. It's your own data. And your own data is better than other people's data, OPD. It's quantitative, it says it with numbers again. It is a fact, it did happen. The recency, it's current. Let's say again that this is in their pitch deck, so it happened recently. Let's call it current. Is it representative here? Yes, because it does represent and validate the basic hypothesis of, if I build it, then people will buy it. Is it significant though? I would argue no. 3 people do not represent a market. Let's look at Uber. And again, for purposes of this discussion, let's say this is part of their market research. 30% of all smartphone users also take public transportation. This receives a 4 out of 6. Why? OPD again. It is quantitative, so it gets a point for that. Let's assume this is from a reputable source. Let's call it a fact. Let's assume this statistic is also within 6 months of this initiative, and so let's call it current. It is not representative though, because it does not validate the basic hypothesis of, if I build it, then people will buy it. But it is significant because Uber's technology relies on the penetration rate of smartphones in the market. This is indicative of a TAM, a total addressable market. And so I would argue that it is significant. Let's look at another example, Tesla. Now, Tesla is known for this strategy of, if people buy it, then I will build it, kind of a reverse of the hypothesis. And so he puts out a concept out there and he says, I'll take deposits on this. And so he did this with the Cybertruck concept. 400,000 people will put down a $100 deposit on the Cybertruck, price to be determined. This gets a score of 5 out of 6. It's a pretty strong statement, but it misses one important thing. This is Yoda. It's their own data. Their skin in the game, right? And the hardcore numbers are attached. This statement is a fact. It did happen. It gets a 0 for recency. Since the deposit was only $100 and refundable, there is no guarantee that this will translate into a sale. Someone can back out at any time. Predictions and forecasts are by its very nature an assumption, and that's why it gets a 0 for recency. This is representative of the basic premise: if I build it, then people will buy it. And it is significant. It does represent a large market. Now, for the last statement, let's revisit again this 3D TV initiative. The impetus for this idea came from the blockbuster success of the movie Avatar, which grossed over $2 billion worldwide. Because of that success, someone hypothesized that if they built 3D TVs, then people would buy them because they loved the movie Avatar in the movie theater. A statement like this will likely never make it into a market research report, but the sentiment will permeate everybody's thinking, and this is basically the underlying assumption that drives this initiative. And so an exercise like this is good to get it out. What are you saying? You're basically saying that the success of the movie Avatar in theaters means that people would be willing to buy a 3D TV. It gets a score of 0. And let's explore why. You can't determine the source of the statement. Is this Yoda or PD? I don't know where you're getting this from. Type. There's no number, so it's not quantitative. But we can't say it's qualitative either. It doesn't answer the question of why people want to buy a 3D TV because of the movie Avatar. Relevant, this is rank assumption. Recency, this is a prediction, therefore an assumption. This needs validation, so it gets no points. Representative of the basic premise? No. Significant? Obviously not. The confidence score is an average of the sum of the total scores given for each statement. The max score a statement can receive is 6. Significant, current, representative, fact-based, primary research carry the most weight in delivering useful, reliable data, i.e. a higher score. A confidence score below 4.5 denotes that the underlying beliefs supporting your hypothesis are not sound. This score is not a validation of your idea, rather a litmus test to assess the reasoning behind your belief that the idea will have market success. It should be used to spot weaknesses in your research and point out the areas where you need to gather stronger data. An analysis of all the statements graphs the distribution of the most valuable statements, and that's included in the template that you can download for free. Should you download it, I encourage you to do so. You will see an example of the 3D TV initiative. It doesn't name one company. Many companies got into this game, but it does lay out the assumptions that were used in order to further this strategy. Looking at that graph, you can see that TV OEMs would have benefited from gathering more Yoda, more primary research, qualitative information, insights behind the observations, fact-based, current, representative, and significant data before they spent and lost millions of dollars on this failed initiative. By the way, the confidence score of these statements are a 0.8. Ouch. Thanks, guys. This was great. See you later.